What's up guys, welcome to a new video on Kevin's Stash, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at all my controllers, starting with the Joy-Cons. So the Joy-Cons are the newest pair of controllers Nintendo has released this generation, and overall I think it's a great design with a few flaws. And with the flaws, let's begin. So the first flaw is the stick. As you guys might not know, the Joy-Cons have a big problem, and that is the Joy-Con drift, which means that the stick drifts or moves by itself, not physically but internally or in the hardware. So let's say whenever you're playing a game, let's say Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, you're trying to make a turn and somehow you didn't do it precise. You might think, oh, it's probably me, I didn't do something right, but it's actually the stick. And the reason why is the components or the type of durability isn't great, and overall, as you can see in this Joy-Con, you can tell it isn't that great. There's like a little hole compared to my other Joy-Con, which also has drift, but it isn't as bad. Usually I always see the controllers that have drift is on the left side because it's the one that most people use. And overall, I'm gonna give these controllers a 7 out of 10. The reason is the Joy-Con drift, and I think it could have been better from a design standpoint because it really hurts playing like this sometimes, but overall a pretty good controller. Next controller is the Pro controller. This one released the same day as the Nintendo Switch, and I gotta admit I also like this one a lot more compared to the Joy-Cons, and this is my primary controller, the one I always use to play games, and overall it's a pretty well designed. It feels so comfortable, everything, the buttons. I think the only problem I have is the D-pad. Compared to other Nintendo consoles, the D-pad isn't something to talk about. I think the few positives is the button layout. It has NFC, it has motion controls, HD rumble, just like the Joy-Cons, and I feel like if your controllers have drift, just get the Pro controller. I haven't experienced drift, and overall it's a pretty good controller, and I definitely recommend it. 8 out of 10. The next controller is the Wii Remote. The Wii Remote released with the Wii. The version I have right here is the newest one, which is the Wii Remote with Wii Motion Plus inside. Overall, I think the Wii Remote is a pretty solid controller. You can use it in both sideways or horizontal, and it works very well with other games. And a good thing is the Wii is designed with accessories in mind. As you can see, you can just plug in the nunchuck and you now have a joystick and a few extra buttons. I think my only flaws with it is the shape. Sometimes right now, before when I was a kid, I didn't have any problems with the shape, but nowadays it's really uncomfortable playing games sideways because your hand gets cramped up. But overall, it's a great design and I enjoy it, especially the amount of customizable and amazing designs these controllers have, which I didn't mention about the Joy-Cons and the Pro controller. Overall, I'm going to give this controller a 9 out of 10 because it was a revolutionary controller and brought lots to the game industry. The next controller is the PDP Wired Fight Pad Pro. I got this controller during 2018 when Smash Ultimate released, and overall it's a great controller. It mimics the GameCube controller style, as you can see, even though whenever you play the games it doesn't register as a GameCube controller. Instead it registers as a Pro controller, which is good since you don't have to go out of your way to buy an adapter, but if you want to play GameCube games with this controller, it will not work. Few good things is the joystick. I really like the joystick feel. I think I don't like the D-pad, which is probably the worst one in my collection. The buttons here, like the plus, minus, I feel like they're a bit too small and sometimes don't register. The X, Y, and A, B buttons are pretty good. And I really like that you can take out this thumbstick and replace it with a smaller one, which is like in the original GameCube controller. Overall, I'm going to give this controller a 7 out of 10. I think the only problems I have with it is that it doesn't register as a GameCube controller and the D-pad. And overall, the how I feel about the controller. I feel like it isn't as comfortable as the other controllers on the list. Controller is the Sn30 Pro Plus by 8-Bit Dough, and this was actually the first wireless controller I bought for the Switch before the Pro controller. I got this at the beginning of 2020, and overall I actually enjoyed this controller. I really liked the way it was packaged, and the D-pad. I really like the D-pad. Compared to the Pro controller, I would say this one's better, and it costs around $20 or $10 less. But do not get this version. Get the newest one, which is the Pro 2, I believe, and since that one has back triggers and macros, I believe. But overall, this is a pretty great controller. It mimics the original SNES controller, and it has a PlayStation like thumbstick, so that's pretty good. Overall, I would give this controller a 9 out of 10. I personally prefer this one, and I feel like it's more comfortable to use, and I really like the style of the controller. Controllers on the list are the original Wii Remote, which released with the Wii, and this third-party Wii Remote by PowerA. So let's start with this one. This is probably the worst controller on this list because everything about it screams cheap, and I haven't even talked about the nunchuck which was included, which I threw away a few days ago because it was starting to rot, which is not something good. Overall, when I first got this controller, it was great since I didn't have anyone to play with, so this was mostly just like if someone came over. But it feels really cheap, and it's really sticky for some reason. I don't know if it's the texture it was designed with, but over time it has gotten pretty bad. I think the only positives is the light button it has, which makes the A, 1 and 2 button light up, which is something cool that I really liked as a kid. And a few problems as well is that it doesn't fit on most Wii accessories. If you try using a Wii wheel, this will not fit in it. It'll be too small. But overall, it's alright. If you're having a hard time finding a Wii Remote or the newest version, I wouldn't recommend it though. But if you don't wanna pay like expensive or ridiculous prices, just go with this. But overall, I'm gonna give this controller a 3 out of 10. For the original Wii Remote, which released in 2006, I think it's a great controller. Like I said before, for the Wii one, it was a pioneer for motion controls. But overall, I recommend more the newest one, which has Wii Motion Plus, and that one is probably even better. But if you find this one out there, it's still a great control. There's nothing different, just the motion controls and maybe a few tweaks, but overall it's a pretty good controller. I will give it a 7 out of 10. Final controllers I own are the wired PowerA controllers by PowerA, and overall these controllers were pretty good at the beginning until a few months later when the sticks got drift, which wasn't pretty good. But for the price, which was $25 each, it was alright and a great option if you didn't want to spend $70 on a Pro controller. But overall, I think it's alright. I think my only problems with these was that they have like a little hole here which doesn't let you use any other like USB stick or cord to plug it into the console, which was, I feel like, a bit anti-consumer. But overall, I would give these controllers a 4 out of 10. Not the worst controllers in my collection, but definitely the worst Switch ones. This is all my controllers ranked from my ratings. As you can see, the worst one is probably this Wii Remote, which I put a 3 out of 10. These Pro controllers I gave a 4 out of 10. And overall, from here, I have pretty positive things to say. For example, the original Wii Remote, I gave it a 7 or 8 out of 10. But I think overall, I'm probably going to give it a 7 out of 10 because the newest version of the Wii Remote, which is the one with Wii Motion Plus, is better in my opinion. And then next is the Pro controller, which is tied between these two because they're alright. And then the Joy-Cons are also here as well. But overall, my favorites are the Sn30 Pro Plus and the Pro controller. Well guys, let me know what you guys think of my ranking of these controllers. If you personally prefer other controllers from the ones on this list. And thank you for watching.